human race. We're tracking every move, keeping pace. New waves, new lines, every figure's a key. In the saga of Transformers, our legacy. TFU news and views, what the story unfolds. And views, news and views. From the spark of creation to the tales untold. Extra, extra. Generations unite in the fans we trust. TFU's got the news, breaking it for us.
Hello, my friend, and welcome to TFU News and Views. I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO, the website, the tour archive, this podcast, Transformers University podcast, and oh so much more. And we are going to talk about 2025 and why 2025 is a great time to be a Transformers fan. I love doing this episode every year. I always feel like every year is a good year to be a Transformers fan. And it's not to say it's without its questions and concerns. And we'll talk about those on the back end of this episode. But as we focus here on episode number 65, we are going to talk a bit about the positive aspects and the great things we have to look forward to in 2025. And I say this, recording this with New York Toy Fair a little more than a week away as of this recording. By the time you get this, it will be less than a week away. Saturday, March 1st, that evening, Hasbro is doing they're bringing back their fan media event. And once again, TFU.INFO has been invited. Unfortunately, I no longer live in New York, so I will not be attending. However, if you're familiar with my friend Miguel from the Steel City Bots podcast on social media as Logos Minor, LOGOSMINOR. He will be going on my behalf. He'll be posting from the TFU accounts on Blue Sky and probably on Twitter. I don't know exactly how I feel about it yet, but I might make it Blue Sky exclusive. Haven't decided, but keep an eye out on the social media for live pictures from the Hasbro event, plus all the information. I mean, Miguel is awesome, absolutely awesome at sleuthing out information, asking all the right questions, certainly asking questions that I wouldn't ask, because his head wraps around this stuff in a much different way than mine does. So definitely check that out, March 1st, 2025. And be sure to check that out on our social media accounts. And I also want to let you know the Blue Sky account, TFU.INFO, all one word, at bluesky.social, bsky.social. And, of course, on Patreon, patreon.com/TFU.INFO. It's how you get to interact with me and interact with the show. Plus, the Patreon, great way to help support the show. You can support for as little as $1. That'll get you early access to our shows. Plus, it will get you access to all sorts of things the further up you go, including some exclusive podcasts and some inside looks, such as my Seven Figures podcast. And, of course, at the senior and up level, you get your name read on each show. So let's give a shout out to our seniors and up: Alex Mendoza, Eric Sire, John 4X Levengood, Jay Soups, Paul Heel, Rob Gerbrecht, and Sean Hamilton. Thank you all for being such big supporters of TFU.INFO and the podcast and the website and everything else on the Patreon. I want to thank you so much. And if you want to sign up for the Patreon, once again, patreon.com/TFU.INFO, all one word. All right. So with the business of some housekeeping, some plugging, and some promotion of what's coming up, let's talk about what's coming up in 2025. What does it mean to be a Transformers fan in 2025? Well, we've passed the 40th anniversary, so that gives us 4 decades of things to experience, 4 decades of things to look back on, 4 decades of things you may not have been able to check out once before. Let's think about that for a second. So either you could be a fan of Transformers, you could be a fan of Hasbro. A lot of that will allow you to experience things. It's why I do Transformers University podcast, to experience the things I have never gotten around to, plus share my love for the things I do know and I do feel pretty well versed in. So, for example, we're in 1988. We're talking Marvel UK comics I've never read. We're talking Master Force, which I've never watched. But we're also talking 1988 toys, which I have and have experienced and had some in 88, bought some as an adult, as a collector, and have certain affinity to different things there. And we're also talking 1988 US comics, which I was totally there for and is totally different way to experience Transformers comics. So there are always different ways to experience this fandom, this universe, this world of Transformers. And so if you're finding yourself bored, and I found myself a little bit bored with the toy collecting side of things, um, then I encourage you to refocus your energy onto maybe some of the fiction or some of the history or some of the backstory behind things. And that's not to say Legacy is boring. I don't think it's that. I find myself just having been around so long, uh, just in a different place, in a different relationship. And we'll talk about this later when it comes to the toy collecting. But let's talk about the toys and what's coming, because there is a lot to be excited about for longtime fans and current fans. You got the Age of the Primes line coming. It's going to have the 13 primes in it, and we're going to get those all in toy form for the first time, all in one line for the first time. I think that is an incredibly interesting way of doing things. We haven't necessarily gotten them all or all in one line. So seeing things like Solus Prime and Megatronus and Prima, and I know they attach the word Prime on the end of those, but that is, not necessarily, I think, the name as much as it feels like the marketing. Get those in physical form for the first time. That's pretty neat. I've started actually creating a Prime shelf. I did this before they announced the line, because I needed a place to put my Primus, and I needed a place to put my Vector Primes, which I used to have a little Vector Prime tribute shelf, because back in the day at an old BotCon, I actually actually won the original sketch drawing by Aaron Archer that designed the first Vector Prime. And so I used to have my old apartment used to have a shrine to Vector Prime with the photo and with every iteration of Vector Prime up until that point. So I needed a place to put those, and the shelf is a little sparse right now. I was able to get Alchemist Prime on there from the Build-A-Figure from Cyberverse and a couple of Alpha Trions. But yeah, we're going to have to find some more primes to put on there, I guess. We're also getting a new Superion, if you haven't heard. This one's very show accurate. I personally really like the Combiner Wars one, which blows my mind that it's 10 years old already. But you know what? A new Superion isn't a bad idea. I really do hope someone does make a gold Rolls Royce chest for the Slingshot figure. So if you happen to see any third-party people out there who are doing accessories like the Dr. Woos of the world, and they make that for the Slingshot, give me a shout. Give me a heads up. Then moving on to Studio Series. Studio Series seems to be a little bit all over the place, and we'll talk about that later. But I think the big thing is Devastator, right? We're seeing a Studio Series 86 Devastator combining with, 6 essentially Voyager-class figures, all combining. I haven't hopped on those pre-orders, but I love that it exists. I will tell you that. I think I'm okay with just having the Combiner Wars one. But I got to say the Studio Series one looks really nice. And of course, Masterpiece and Missing Link are going to continue on. We're going to get something that I've kind of, used to joke about at these Hasbro fan events, because they would talk about Star Wars vintage, and they would bring new characters into these vintage line. I was like, why isn't Transformers doing this? Like, do 86 characters in the not 86 characters. You post G1 characters or characters that weren't made in the original toy line style. And I think Missing Link is doing that to some extent by doing the RC figure from the prototype. And then Sunstreaker, just as a whole, sounds like it's going to be awesome. As that is one of the figures, one of the molds that was lost to time. Sunstreaker has never been reissued in a post G1 world. So seeing that toy, and that being the first toy designed for Diaclone and being essentially the first Transformer, it makes sense for it to be one of the first in Missing Link. Of course, collaborations are going to continue on. I see Takara's doing collabs on their own with the Godzilla stuff, and then Hasbro's doing a whole bunch. the Monster Hunter, Sonic. It does make me wonder, especially after last year and getting the Knight Rider collaboration, which I really thought there was no market for. It actually kind of surprised me. I was like, they actually went through with it, because I feel like there is no nostalgia market for Knight Rider. It does make me wonder what is next. And part of me is really hoping for an A-Team van. I would love to see them pull that off somewhere. So let's see. You never know. There could be some other uses for a van of that caliber, and we might get into that as we talk a little bit about print media. If you've read Transformers number 17, you know what I'm talking about. The collabs still going to continue into 2025. Another great reason to be a Transformers fan. And of course, the HasLab, Lyle Kaiser. As of right now, it has been fully funded, and we're looking at stretch goals. I'm really hoping it hits the Death Cobra goal. It is a really neat looking figure. Again, don't know if I'm going to back it, and we'll get into that a bit later. But I would like to back it. Let's put it that way. Moving on, we've got some licenses being, that have been big, blockies, or as they call it in Europe, blokies. YOLO Park, Flame Toys, a lot of these have been hitting hard for some fans. So that's great. It's another great reason to be a Transformer fan. If you're not thrilled with Hasbro's product, you want something smaller, cheaper, something that doesn't transform but looks really cool, there's a lot of options out there for you. Plus, there's surprises throughout the year. We have some selects figures that'll show up throughout the year, and of course, the capsules for like Walmart and for Amazon and Target. On the mainline side, the non-collector side, you still have Cyberworld coming, and we'll see what that is all about, hopefully this year at Toy Fair at the beginning of March. We also have got Wild King, or Doc King, which is apparently the new Takara line that we know so little about, but we'll find out more about that. And then we have the Swapticons Kids line, where the alternate modes combine into larger alternate modes. It's cute, it's fun, hopefully it's cheap. I don't think putting too much faith into that being a long-term solution for Hasbro is a big deal. But if you want some, interesting fun, and I really do think toys should be fun, versions of your favorite characters, maybe it's Swapticons for you, or maybe it's Authentics, which still keeps going somehow. So 2025 from the toy front is still very busy, very heavily loaded with figures. And then you go into, the TV and film side of things. Got Transformers 1 on streaming. If you haven't watched it yet, Paramount Plus, a great reason really to have a Paramount Plus subscription. Put it on, leave it on loop. Just let it run in the background. Really, boost those stats for Transformers 1. It was a great film, and it really does deserve more attention than it got. You have Earthspark wrapping up. I just started season 3 on Paramount Plus. I believe there were rumors of a wrap-up movie or a season 4, or maybe it's a little of both, coming after Cyberworld premieres. I don't know exactly how this is laid out. I saw a graphic about it, and it didn't make much sense, but maybe that'll get clarified also at Toy Fair. Plus, you got Cyberworld coming. So we have another new mainline for kids, which I really do miss the focus on that. I feel like that really led to creativity in the Transformers brand, and really led to a lot of the love for other characters that aren't 1984, 85, 86, that we're not really seeing as much of today. Again, we'll get into that after the break, but you have the Skybound comic doing incredibly well in the print media side. It's a good book. I'm enjoying it. I'm not loving it, but I'm enjoying it, and I think that's good enough for now. And then on the video game side, Transformers Earth Wars still ticking away. It's got to be getting close to a 10th year anniversary for that. And speaking of anniversaries, let's talk about anniversaries coming up in 2025. This year's a bridge year. Next year's another 40th anniversary. Next year, 2026, will be the 40th anniversary of Transformers, the movie. That's a big deal. That's going to be made into a big deal. I can almost guarantee it. But for now, you're in that gap year between the year that it debuted and the year that the movie came out. So it's going to be interesting to see if they do any sort of 40th anniversary for 1985. We'll see. Anyway, You have 35 years for Action Masters. Don't think they'll do much, but you never know. They might slip something into Age of the Primes. You had 25 years of Transformers Car Robots, the Japanese series that became Robots in Disguise 2001 in the United States. 20 years of Cybertron, and we already know we're getting a capsule series at Walmart based around Transformers Cybertron. And then 15 years for the Hunt for the Decepticons line, which you can almost guarantee is not going to get celebrated, though there are some really good toys in that line. And then 10 years for Robots in Disguise 2015 and Combiner Wars. Two of the, one, the Combiner Wars line pretty much has kickstarted us into the age of generations that we're in now. And then Robots in Disguise 2015 Sleeper line. Such a great line of toys. I even scored one recently off of eBay that was a tail ender that didn't really come out in the United States. It was available only, I think, at Ross at some point, and that was Crazy Bolt, which is one of the Deployers figures. And I got it for essentially what was retail in 2016 when it came out. So don't sleep on Robots in Disguise 2015. Again, talking about things that you haven't experienced in the last 40 years. If you don't know enough about Robots in Disguise 2015, go watch the reruns on, I guess it would be on Tubi. Go check out a few of the figures. You will not be disappointed. And with that, we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about the critical side of Transformers and Hasbro in the future in 2025.
It is a world transformed, where things are not what they seem. Transformers!
Want to learn a bit about the Transformers? Think you know everything about Cybertron, but are looking to learn a little bit more? Enroll today at Transformers University Podcast. Each episode will tackle a piece of Transformers history, starting in 1984 and marching our way up to today. Hosted by me, Anthony Brucali, 3-time Emmy Award winner and consulting producer on Netflix's The Toys That Made Us, and lifelong Transformers fan. We'll go on a journey through cartoons and comics, toys and movies, and all the weird esoterica from around the world, chronicling the adventures of everyone's favorite Robots in Disguise. Listen to Transformers University on iTunes, Google, Spotify, YouTube, and wherever you get your favorite podcasts.
Transform and roll out!
All right, so let's talk about 2025. Serious talk about Hasbro's performance, about the things that may not be so good for 2026 or 2027, and for parts of 2025. Hasbro's performance in 2024 was not good. It hasn't been good for a few years. There's been lots of layoffs.
Playoffs? Don't talk about playoffs.
And I don't think that's a good sign for the brands or the industry or for the company overall. There's a big article that goes around. I keep seeing the headlines, but it's behind a paywall about Hasbro eliminating 80% of their SKUs, which means that they're moving product, trimming down how big some of their product lines are and how far their actual reach is in certain areas. And it's not a bad idea. But that also means it's for Transformers. What does that mean? What goes into that 80%? Do we get less figures in Generations or in, the kids lines? Maybe. I think, the movie lines coming off the books it contributes to that 80%. So not having a movie this year, which they had for the last 2 years, means that all the SKUs dedicated to Rise of the Beasts and for Transformers 1 are essentially automatically off in that 80% of things eliminated. So that's an easy pull for Hasbro. I think my concern with Hasbro is Chris Cox's leadership. He is the CEO of Hasbro, and his over-reliance on licensing. If you haven't noticed, just about anyone can buy the license for Transformers or G.I. Joe or the big Hasbro brands. And it always seems to be skewed and focused towards G1. There has been a G1 burnout in the Transformer community and Transformer collecting community for a very long time. And the last 3 years or so, I feel like it's been exacerbated. It's been done even more so. And that wouldn't be so bad if it weren't for the one word I put out there a lot over the last 2 years or so, and that is price. Price, price, price. This is what I wrote on here. These are no longer an impulse buy. Buying a deluxe transformer at $25 versus the 10 or 12 or even 15 it was 10 years ago. That is a big jump. That is that's a lot, especially in this economy, especially in this weird U.S. economy world that we're in. And no, I don't think things are going to get better. I honestly don't. Unless somehow people are making more money as part of their salary, or that prices come down and come down quickly. I don't see the trend continuing. I see a lot of people waiting for Ross. I see myself doing it. I'm going to wait till that goes to Ross. I say it all the time because I feel like, you know what, certain characters not popular enough to sell very well at regular retail. So they're going to go to Ross. So like with the Age of the Primes line, it's a gamble. I could pay late tax on a lot of those figures. Or maybe a lot of those go to Ross, and I don't have to worry about it, and I can get them for the price I wanted to pay. Additionally, in the U.S., these new tariffs that are going to be muscled through, it feels like, and hopefully they aren't, or they're just some terrible bargaining position. That's going to be bad for Transformers fans. Tariffs from goods from China. Fortunately, most Transformers are not made in China. They're made in India and Vietnam. But who's to say those countries don't get tariffs placed on them? And if they do, what does that mean for Transformers toys as a whole? Well, guess what? It means higher prices on things that already have prices that feel too high. So I say to Chris Cox, I say to the leadership of Hasbro, it's about the price. I'm a collector. I want to buy a lot of stuff, but I don't want to spend a lot of money, which puts me still above your average consumer. I think that's the other thing, right? An average consumer is going to buy for their kid or someone else's kid, and is willing to maybe spend a little extra, but they're also looking for value, and they're looking to spend in a way that makes them look good. It looks, if I can buy 2 Transformers for $20 and put that in a gift bag and give that to someone's kid for a birthday present, that is so much different than me buying one core class figure at $12.99 and being like, this tiny thing is the gift. I need to buy something else that's cheaper to balance that out. So I will say again, it's about price. Hasbro, focus less on margin, more on volume. I would much rather be able to say, yeah, I'll blow $10 on that this week than having to figure out how I'm getting the $25 together to buy whatever the latest deluxe that really appeals to me is. Now, the other problem I feel like Transformers faces in this year and coming years is we're in a bit of a nostalgia loop. Look, there's always going to be Optimus, always going to be Megatron, Bumblebee, Starscream. I get it. But after a while, there is a bit of a saturation point. We were seeing it already with Transformers, with the announcement of the Hearts of Steel figures. It's a great way to get an Optimus and a Megatron and a Bumblebee and a Starscream out there in a way that they've never been out there. But at some point, the old guard, the old 1984 guard like myself, not that we're going to age out of collecting, but we're going to have said, you know what, I'm good. I got the one I want. I got the version I want. I don't want to buy another version. I don't want to flip my old version. I don't want to put that effort in. That's happening a lot more around the circles of people I know and I talk to who are my age. And that cascades down to people who are younger, and that happens over time. And the older some folks get, closer to the end, some folks get, which is very hard to hear, the less likely they are to jump on board later on. So what does that mean? We need to refresh Transformers as a science fiction line, as a science fiction property. I really wish Hasbro would see this. Transformers does really well, not just as G1, but as the other things it is when they introduce new characters, when they just tell the story. There are 3 ways I feel like Transformers works, and I use other properties to kind of state this, right? So Transformers works well in 3 different iterations, and I say that because these iterations are more popular than Transformers, but Transformers in that kind of skin works well. So first is Transformers as X-Men, right? As the people that don't belong, as the robots in disguise, as these powerful beings hiding amongst the populace, right? That is one, right? That is very much, then becomes the us versus them of the X-Men. We should line up with them, Professor X says. We should overtake them, Magneto says. That is Optimus and Megatron, right? That is, freedom is the right of all sentient beings, peace through tyranny, colliding on a story level. That's one way to view Transformers, and that's one way it works very well. The second way it works very well is Transformers as Star Trek. A bunch of alien robots who just happen to be in a spaceship, touring around space and finding other creatures and other similar beings. This is Transformers Season 3, G1 Season 3 for the most part, by the way. This is also the Lost Light comic book series and More Than Meets the Eye comic book series, by the way. Transformers works really well because that is about interpersonal relationships. That is about making commentary on our world by dressing it up as other worlds. Transformers works very well doing that as well. And finally, the third way Transformers works really well, though I think it's the least effective of the 3, is Transformers as Star Wars. Both the political machinations of it, which was Transformers Robots in Disguise comic book from IDW, and Windblade to some extent, and then Transformers also as Star Wars as this world building kind of thing on Cybertron, right? So you have these 3 very diverse ways of telling Transformers stories, and they all exist. But as you rehash G1 over and over and over, you don't really get to do much of any of those to some extent. You may live in that X-Men one for a long time. It's nice kind of to see Skybound kind of playing around with this because they have the Transformers series, the comic book series, which is totally like a bit of that X-Men vibe. And then they've got the Void Rivals comic, which is a bit of that Star Trek-y vibe. And a little bit of Star Wars vibe too. But the key point in all of this is you can do this with any characters. You can do this without Optimus, Megatron, Starscream, Bumblebee, Shockwave, Grimlock. You can grab any characters from the lore and do this. You can create a whole set of new characters and do this and just grow it within a Transformers world-building concept, right? And it all works. And so I think that is the one thing that concerns me. There's also a lack of kid focus on the toy lines, which also concerns me. And this lack of focus, this thing that is kind of all over the place, especially with the toy lines, especially with Studio Series, as you're seeing now, where it doesn't really know what it is anymore. That concerns me because that puts a lot of the Transformers brand in SKUs that are only selling partially and then may also be eliminated. Hasbro has never had a really good cohesive approach to taking their stories and then building upon them for the next generation. They're very good at doing the wheel where they spin their old story to fit what is current and what is popular. But it has been a long time since they have launched original content that isn't steeped in 84, isn't steeped in G1. And I think that is where I would love to see the Transformers brand go in 2026 and beyond. And so hopefully we can see that. But that doesn't mean that the future is not bright for Transformers. As we've mentioned earlier in this episode, 25 and 25 is going to be a good year if you're a Transformers fan. It's always a good time to be a Transformers fan. And the last part I want to talk about Transformers fandom is the fandom. The fan communities in Transformers are great. We have the best wiki of any fandom, hands down, far and away. We have great resources like like TFU.INFO, and the myriad of other news websites out there and Transformers websites out there, such as like the TF archive and so many more. TF Raw is another one that has just great stuff. Unicron.com, Ben Yee. There are so many Ben Yee, BWTF.com. There's so many great Transformers resources out there. And of course, there's the podcasts, aside from my own, Radio Free Cybertron, Transmissions, Triple Takeover, Stasis Pod, Mike Seibert Radio Podcast, Two Mikes, Too Furious, and there's one that's escaping me. Oh, Transformers Chronicles, the Transformers comic book podcast. All of these are great ways to engage with the community. There's also my friend James Hooks' comic, his fanfic comic, Song of Jupiter. If you haven't checked it out, what are you waiting for? It is great. He's got book 2 out. I mean, we're talking full color comic book pages, basically 2 huge graphic novels worth checking out. There's always great stuff within the Transformers fan community. And I'm totally leaving stuff out, and I realize that. And I apologize if you're listening. You're like, I do this thing, and you didn't talk about it. I am already apologizing for missing it. But there's a lot of great stuff in the Transformers fan community. That, plus the 40 years of stuff from the years of this franchise, the official stuff. There's just so much to experience. So it is always a good time to be a Transformers fan. And with that, we're going to wrap this up. Next time on the show, I think we're going to do a little bit of Toy Fair coverage. We'll react to whatever is announced next week at New York Toy Fair and the Hasbro Fan Press event. Once again, make sure you check out the Blue Sky account, TFU.INFO, all one word, at bsky.social. And yeah, I guess the Twitter account, TFU_info at twitter.com. Yes, I'm calling it Twitter. We'll post some content there, but I think most of the content is going to be on Blue Sky for all the latest from that event. And I think next week I'll post some reaction, find out what we saw and how cool was it. Well, only time will tell. Until next time, I am your host, Anthony Brucali, owner, operator, madman behind TFU.INFO. See ya.
From Cybertron's heart to the human race, we're tracking every move, keeping pace. New waves, new lines, every figure's a key. In the saga of Transformers, our legacy. TFU news and views, what the story unfolds. And views, news and views. From the spark of creation to the tales untold. Extra, extra. Generations unite, in the fans we trust. TFU's got the news, breaking it for us. Every new saga where the legends swarm, we bring you the updates, keeping you informed. From Energon Fields to the Matrix's light, we're chronicling the legends day and night. TFU news and views, where the story unfolds. And views, news and views. From the spark of creation to the tales untold. Extra, extra. Generations unite, in the fans we trust. TFU's got the news, breaking it for us. The crime beast wars or the latest arc, we're igniting the passion, lightening the spark. From toys to comics, movies to TV, we're shaping the legacy, come and see. In the echo of battle, in the calm after storms, we're mapping the journey in all its forms. From the golden age to the darkest hour, we'll transform your day with knowledge and power. TFU news and views, where the story unfolds. And views, news and views. From the spark of creation to the tales untold. Extra, extra. Generations unite, in the fans we trust. TFU's got the news, breaking it for us. Transform and ascend as the legacy grows. TFU news and views, where the history flows. We're driving the future with stories brand new. This is TFU.INFO, all for you.